Hello everyone, this is your friend, your boy, Jet Black the One and Only, here with another exciting live stream. And in this video, I'm going to be reviewing the latest DC digital first release, Batman Gotham Knights. In case you guys aren't aware, DC Comics is releasing a new digital comic book every day. Each book is only 99 cents. After the stream is over, I'm going to add a link in the description box below where you guys can pick up this book for yourself. And it's going to be an Amazon affiliate link. So if you guys actually visit that link, I'll be able to make a little bit of money off of you guys as buying the book, like off of the purchase. So it helps support me and it helps you get the book in your hands. In this review, I'm going to be going over the story, breaking down like all the important events that happen. Then I'm going to tell you what my favorite moment was, my least favorite moment was, and who I'd recommend the book to. This book is actually two stories put into one. The first is called Medal of Honor, and the second is called Honor Code. So I'm going to review each story individually, telling you my favorite and least favorite part of each story, and then I'm going to recommend each story individually. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Godzilla said, "Hey Nick, how long will this stream be?" I guess it really depends on uh, how interested you guys are in the subject matter. So if you guys get really hype about these comic reviews, then we could have like an extended discussion. But if you guys don't really care that much about it, then I'll probably just review the comic and then end the stream. It's really up to you guys. Okay, so let's jump in. So the first story in Batman Gotham Knights issue 1 is Medal of Honor. Kratos said, "So I done goofed." So Kratos, is everything okay? Also, I'm doing a comic book review, Kratos, so give me one moment. I'm going to review the first story and then I'll jump more into the live chat. Okay, so the first story in Batman Gotham Knights issue number 1 is called Medal of Honor. Batman springs into action to help a group of police officers who are being overwhelmed by a shower of gunfire from a gang of goons dressed like clowns. Batman helps get some of the injured police officers to safety by using gas grenades to provide cover, and the gang of clowns reveal that they've taken Commissioner Gordon hostage. Batman saves Commissioner Gordon by warding off the gang with a series of well aimed battering shots. Batman struggles to give Commissioner Gordon medical attention until the paramedics arrive. During all this, narration is given about how Batman copes with loss and how he puts his all into everything he does in order to keep going. Like that's what motivates him past like the sadness of loss. And the end of the story creates parallels between Batman's tireless crime fighting efforts and the amazing feats of soldiers in the US military. And that's pretty much a complete summary of what happens in the first story, Medal of Honor. Of course, I don't go into like super deep detail. There are things that I'll skip over. So if you guys want to get the full story, you're going to want to buy the issue, which, like I said, I'm going to have a link to where you guys are able to buy it in the description box below. So I'll add that link after the stream. Now I'm going to tell you guys what my favorite moment from that first story was, what my least favorite moment from that first story was, and who I would recommend the story to. So, my favorite moment from Medal of Honor, I enjoyed seeing Batman use his gas grenades to maneuver through gunfire and to save police officers. I've seen it before, like, this isn't like the first time I've ever seen Batman do stuff like this, but this was different. Like, the way that they did it in this issue made it seem a lot more like navigating through a war zone and pushing the line to try and encroach on enemy forces. Like most of the time when I see Batman drop like a smoke grenade, but not to fight, it's normally like to sneak past enemies, not to like get closer to them. So I thought it was really interesting for him to use the gas grenades in that way. And I feel like it fit the theme of the book and that was a really cool visual. My least favorite moment of the story is when Batman throws batarangs up. My apologies. So we had a connection error for a moment, but I'm back. Kratos said, "Spoiler free review, please." So I give a summary of the whole story, but I leave stuff out. So there are additional details and stuff that you can still get from reading the full book. but I tried to summarize it as concisely as possible. Kratos said, that does sound interesting. I'm glad you vibe. My least favorite moment from Medal of Honor is when Batman throws batarangs to ward off gang members. I thought that was rather dull. So Batman didn't do any cool trick shots. He didn't use any special batarangs. It just felt pretty standard. Um, and I just feel like they could have very easily spiced it up because it was a tense moment. You know, Batman's trying to save his best friend in some stories. Some stories make Commissioner Gordon and Batman really close. He's trying to save like a really good friend of his from getting shot. So I understood that he had to like make a very precise shot and make sure that the guy didn't accidentally shoot Commissioner Gordon or whatever. But he didn't make the batarang ricochet off of walls. He didn't throw like the reverse batarang that looks like it misses and then comes back. He didn't throw like a sonic batarang to like stun them or anything. I don't know. It just seemed kind of lazy. Like they could have made it cool, but they were like, he just throws the batarangs and it works. But it's whatever. Um, my recommendation. So, if you like Batman stories that are less spectacle based, then I think you'll really appreciate the story. Like, if you love Batman, but you hate seeing him fight like over the top villains, like you're not a fan of like Mr. Freeze or Poison Ivy or anything, you just want to see Batman fighting like normal thugs, this is great. Because I mean, other than them wearing clown outfits, it's really not that crazy. It's just Batman fighting crime and helping the police. So yeah, that is my full review of Medal of Honor, which is the first story in Batman Gotham Knights issue 1. The second story in Batman Gotham Knights issue 1 is called Honor Code. So I'm going to hit you guys up with the Honor Code review, but first, I'm going to read a little bit of live chat. So Kratos said, I'll definitely check it out. He said, I'm a fan of it all. I just haven't really gotten into comics much. Well, Kratos, this is the best opportunity to get into comics. A lot of times, all the new comics will come out on Wednesday, and it's really overwhelming because Marvel drops a whole bunch of books, DC drops a whole bunch of books, and you kind of have to pick which ones you want to read unless you have the time and the money to buy and read all of them. But now that DC is essentially the only company that's coming out with comics during the current pandemic, and that the comics are coming out once a day and they're only $1 each, it's really easy to know what to read, and all the books are affordable because you just spend $1 a day and you get the latest comic that everybody's talking about because it's the only comic that came out, you know? So that's definitely helping me regularly read comics, and I think it's going to help a lot of new readers get into reading comics. And a lot of big name characters are getting books this week. Superman had a book yesterday, Batman had a book today, tomorrow Wonder Woman's getting a book, then Aquaman's getting a book the day after that. I think him or the Flash. After that's the Flash. Then we're gonna get a DC Superhero Girls book, which my girlfriend's really excited about, and then we're gonna get a Swamp Thing book. And that's just this week. They're gonna keep doing that every day. So I'm hyped. Let's see. Kratos said, also, I done goofed by getting carried away. You'll see when you check Facebook. And then Kratos said, I'll buy it now. Oh, ballin'. Well, actually, if you go to the community tab on the channel, Kratos, I have an affiliate link where you'll be able to buy this comic, and I'll actually get a little bit of the proceeds. It's kind of like an ad almost. So that's something that I'm doing now for these comic reviews. So by clicking on those affiliate links and buying it through there, you help to support the channel, and I get to give back to DC a little bit by helping like push customers their way. Godzilla said, Man Thing is really cool. I'm glad you vibe. I need to look more into Man Thing and Swamp Thing. I guess I will, because the last comic coming out this week is Swamp Thing, and I'm gonna read all the books that come out from DC for these like daily releases. So I hope you tune into the Swamp Thing episode. I imagine you'll like it. Let's see. Kratos said, "Where that Doctor Fate at though?" And then he said, "I got you." I actually read a really good Doctor Fate story recently. Um, there was an event that happened a few years ago called Future's End, and during the Future's End event, there was a Constantine tie-in, and it's essentially a Constantine versus Dr. Fate book, but it's not like a battle of like action and special effects or anything. It's more of like a battle of wits. Like it's them trying to outsmart each other. And it's actually a really cool book. So if you're a big fan of Dr. Fate, you may be interested in checking out that book. Kratos said, "Ooh, that sounds interesting. I'm glad you vibe." Now, without further ado, let's review Honor Code, the second story in Batman Gotham Knights issue 1. So this story follows Batwoman when she was in the military, but before she became Batwoman. So it's kind of weird. When I realized that it was like a prequel story where she's not in her superhero identity, I was like, oh, why'd they go with this one? But without further ado, I'm gonna read through the events of what happened in the story. So at first, she's underestimated by her male peers, but she proves herself by discovering the location and identity of a fugitive by identifying tells in the people that they question. So whenever they're talking to people, she points out like little things, like little reactions that people have, and she's able to piece those together to figure out where the fugitive is and who the fugitive is. But when the fugitive is found, a gunfight breaks out, and Batwoman is the only person left who can stop him. Everyone else is like injured and unable to chase after him. So Batwoman chases the fugitive into a cave where the gunfire causes bats to swarm the fugitive. While the fugitive is intimidated by the swarm, Batwoman knocks him out with her rifle. And that's pretty much the story. That's like the whole story. Um, of course, I leave out details here and there so that you guys can pick up the book and still be able to appreciate those details that I left out. Now, I'm going to go over my favorite moment from the story and my least favorite moment from the story. So, my favorite moment was when the fugitive is swarmed by bats. They actually designed Batwoman's silhouette in that scene to make it look as if she's in her costume. So, it's almost like for a moment she is Batwoman, which I thought was really cool. And I felt like the scene was like the most cinematic moment of the book. My least favorite moment is when Batwoman and her team fall for a very obvious trap that leads to the all out gunfight. It just seems like, based on how the story was written, they could have just done a little bit of reconnaissance and not been like suddenly surprised by gunfire. Like, if they just took a moment to just analyze the situation, they could have taken their enemies by surprise instead of them being taken by surprise. And next up is my recommendation. Like, who would I recommend this story to? So I would say, if you're into war stories, then this might be up your alley. Like, if you really love reading stories about like soldiers and like gun battles and soldiers who like talk with like citizens and use their wit and like analyze people in order to like solve problems, then this would be the story for you. But it's not really a superhero story. It doesn't have a lot of spectacle. And really, that's how I describe the book as a whole. Like, if you don't like spectacle, if you don't like seeing people run around in costumes and use powers and shit like that, this is a pretty, like, grounded book, is what I would say, like, overall. But not bad. Like, if you're really into war stories and you're really into like grounded Batman stories, I can highly recommend to you Batman Gotham Knights issue 1. So let me read the live chat and see what you guys have to say. So Kratos said Dr. Fate and Deathstroke are my two favorite DC characters. So I wanted to recommend like a good Deathstroke book, but I'm probably not. I'm probably not the best person to ask for a good Deathstroke book. So I don't have one off the top of my head. Recently, there was an event that was Batman versus Deathstroke, so that might be a good place to look for like a good Deathstroke story. I don't think I finished Batman versus Deathstroke. I read like the first couple of issues, but if you're a huge fan of Deathstroke, you probably would really like Batman versus Deathstroke. Let's see. Godzilla said they could have added Killer Croc. I feel like if they added Killer Croc, it would have probably made it feel less grounded, and I think the whole point of this particular issue was to tell really grounded Batman stories that talked about like honor and what it meant to be a soldier. The first story does that by drawing parallels between like Batman's drive for justice and like a soldier's commitment to their country. Whereas the second story is just literally a war story about a soldier. Kratos said, I'm not a big fan of war stories. I'm also not a super big fan of war stories. Like, to be honest, I liked the first story, Medal of Honor, a lot more than the second story, Honor Code. And if I were to compare the two comics that have come out this week, I would say the Superman comic that I reviewed yesterday. If you haven't seen that, definitely make sure you check out that review. That comic, I think, is better than this comic. Um, like yesterday, I talked about how that Superman comic just seemed like a standard Superman story. And if you really liked the character Parasite, then you definitely love it because it's all about Parasite. Um, but I felt like it did a better job at just being like a standard Superman story, where this Batman book seems to be really focused on that military theme to the point where at parts it just doesn't feel like a Batman book, you know? Let's see. Kratos said, "I'm definitely a bigger fan of spectacles, but I don't mind grounded stories." I get where you're coming from, Kratos. I too am like more into spectacle than grounded stories. I really think it depends on the character, though. You know what I mean? Like a Batman story that's super grounded sounds fine to me, but like a cosmic character who's known for being more flashy and doing crazier stuff, I expect more from their books. And if they're more grounded, I feel a little bit off put by it because it almost seems like against what you would expect. But I feel like it can be written well enough to be like gripping. There's a really good Vision run that I love, and it's pretty grounded to be honest. To be about like an android and his sentient family, which sounds really off the wall, I think it's like a pretty good, almost like true crime story. Let's see. Godzilla said, "I love war stories. If there is a bug, people, and more fantasy slash more strange. So you like very like non-grounded war stories. That sounds kind of interesting." Kratos said, "That makes sense." Dozer said, "Like you wouldn't want a Booster Gold story about Booster Gold stopping the mob." So the thing about Booster Gold though is that he's very like comedy relief at times as well. So I agree I wouldn't really want to see him stop the mob, but I also think that that's like a good way for him to make light of the situation. Like I could see him making fun of it and it be interesting, I guess. The comedy adds like an additional aspect to it where I'm kind of okay with that. Like if that was the premise, I'd be like, that doesn't sound too bad. But I also would be expecting a twist, I guess. Like if nothing really crazy happened, I would probably be bored with it. But if Booster Gold's involved, I would assume that something bigger was happening. Maybe that's what would happen, actually. I think Dozer got me. So I think if a really cosmic character was put into like a really grounded story, I would assume there was going to be a twist and they could probably trick me into reading a good bit of the book before I gave up on it. I could see that being a thing. Because Booster Gold was a good example. It made me think about it more. Kratos said, "I'm honestly not a big fan of Superman somehow." So when I was younger, I used to kind of dog on Superman and talk about how like Superman's boring and that I have no real interest in Superman. And then I read the New 52 run of Superman up to a point. There was a part where I stopped reading it, and it was mainly when they stopped putting New 52 on the cover because I would go to the local comic book store and to make sure I got the right ones, I would get all the graphic novels that said New 52 on it. And once they stopped putting New 52 on it, I was like, I guess I read all of them. But there were more after that. I kind of know what happens in those, I just have never looked at them. And Superman, honestly, to me, is a really good character. I think people misunderstand him as being like some overpowered force of nature. But to be honest, Superman has some fairly like relatable stories to be such a godlike character. And when his stories aren't super relatable, they're normally very inspiring or like uplifting. Like Superman stories are known for having like good messages and good morals, but also Superman is normally pit against villains who directly counter him. Like a lot of people who feel like Superman's overpowered, I think don't really know about Superman's larger rogue gallery. They think about like Lex Luthor and they're like, that doesn't really seem like a challenge. But he fights people like Parasite and Amazo and Metallo and Kryptonite Man, like people who are specifically designed to give Superman a hard time. And I think it can lead to really interesting stories. And Superman done right is a Superman story that like makes you feel happy about life and to give you hope about the world around you, while also demonstrating Superman not only just brute forcing his way through like weaker villains, but using his wits and his compassion in order to overcome situations. Superman's the kind of guy who will reason with you and try and like work things out before he'll punch you in the face. And even when he does punch you in the face, he's kind of smart about it. He knows that he needs to like put limits on himself, and he tries to be more crafty than crunchy, you know? Let's see. So Kratos said, "What's your favorite Superman comic of all time?" And that's a pretty big question. That's a pretty big question. So I know that you're trying to get like a good recommendation for like a Superman story. And I think a lot of people would probably direct you to All Star Superman because that's like a really critically acclaimed Superman story that people say is really good. Um, I don't think I've read All Star Superman. I think I saw like the animated movie for it, but I don't think I read it. Which is crazy because I'm here talking about how Superman's such a great character, but I don't think I've read like what people say is like one of the best Superman stories ever. I don't know. I honestly don't know, Kratos. Like what the best Superman story that I've like ever read is. It seems easier to identify like bad Superman stories, like when you don't like it, um, because you know what to look for in a good Superman story. I would recommend Kratos reading like the DC Rebirth run of like Superman. Excuse me, like just start with like the first DC Rebirth issue of Superman and then move forward from there. You get to see Superman act as like a father figure to his son, and it allows you to have like really action-packed sequences where Superman and his son are working together to fight villains. But it also allows you to have like really nice, relatable moments of like father son bonding and like father son drama, but not like ridiculous stuff, just like working through problems, like as being a father. And I don't know, I just feel like that was like a special time for Superman, and it's something that we probably won't see again for a long time. But it's not a bad starting place if you want to like get into Superman and understand who Superman is. Because as you will learn about who Superman is, Superman's son is also learning what it means to be Superman. So he kind of acts as like a surrogate for the audience. You can kind of put yourself in his shoes and you'll be growing with him. As Superman teaches him lessons, you'll learn what makes Superman so special. So that's my recommendation for like a Superman story to check out. Let's see. Kratos said, and it's not that I've always thought he was overpowered. It's just my only experience with him was from movies, which I don't feel like portray him enough. That's fair. I do think, at least in live action media, Superman's kind of weird. But I don't really even think that's true. So, like, the old school Superman movies, I think, are good, but a little slow. But I think that has to do with the times. I feel like a lot of older movies don't feel as fast paced as modern films. Modern Superman is kind of like trying to be edgy, but it comes off kind of cringy, and I don't know how I feel about modern Superman. Um, but the Adventures of Superboy live action show, that's so fucking good. And if you want like the CW version of that, there's Smallville. I have watched some Smallville. Smallville's not bad, but yo, Adventures of Superboy from like the 90s. I've almost watched all of that show. I'm on like season 4. I don't remember what episode of it I'm on. That was back when Dad had the DC Universe subscription. But I have it all on DVD, so I just need to watch it on DVD. Good ass show. I feel like that's probably the best interpretation of Superman that I've ever seen. Is that fucking show is good. Yes, hit it up. That's my recommendation to you. Not even like a comic thing. The most Superman I have ever consumed is Adventures of Superboy from the 90s. Hit that shit up. It's good. Let's see. Kratos said, I don't want critically acclaimed. I want Nick acclaimed. Adventures of Superboy. If you can find it. I mean, you can find it. It's on Amazon if you get it like on DVD. That's what I did. It's good. It's good. Or if you get a DC Universe subscription, you can watch it on there. It's good. Kratos said, not the best, just your favorite. Adventures of Superboy. Ryan said, Chile still lives under the authoritarian constitution of the fascist dictatorship. Kratos said, yeah, live action I meant. Also, there's like good animated Superman. Like people really, really fuck with the Fleischer Superman, which I think is like brilliant animation, standard Superman. Like, and standard Superman isn't bad. It's just probably a good way to introduce people to what Superman is. But I feel like you're not looking for what Superman is, you're more looking for Superman at his best. And I'd say some of my like favorite experiences with Superman, I read a good bit of the New 52 Superman, so I can recommend that as being at the very least interesting. Not everybody likes New 52 Superman, but that was my first introduction to the character outside of like the cartoons and stuff, and I liked it. And then Fleischer cartoon Superman, I think you'll really appreciate the animation, especially if you learn about like what they did in order to make that show. But I don't think the stories are particularly compelling. They feel like bread and butter Superman, but I think that's in part because of how much influence they've had over the character and his history. Let's see. Ryan said there are a bunch of good animated movies. That's true. If you haven't hit up like the DC animated universe, then you are missing out on a good bit. My favorite parts of the DC animated universe are like Static Shock and Batman Beyond. Batman Beyond, I've rewatched who knows how many times. And Static Shock, my friend Ethan in high school and that was my friend Ethan and I back in high school. That's what I meant to say. We really vibed with Static Shock, and we would like talk about Static Shock and watch it together. And there was an episode where Static and his friend Richie did a dance, and Ethan and I learned that little dance. And it was fun. I don't know. It's just taking me back on memory lane. But Static Shock and Batman Beyond are both really cool. Static Shock teaches a lot of really interesting and important life lessons, and it has like its darker, more emotional moments while still being kind of like a fun and bright superhero show, and also being like a reflection of like what it's like to be like a teenager kind of thing. I don't know. It has a lot going on for it. And then Batman Beyond is more of like a darker teen future, not really dystopia, but still kind of fucked up world. I dug that. It's pretty good. And that has a lot of like interesting like sci-fi stuff. Like whether or not it's right for people to alter their DNA for cosmetics. And it talks about like the dangers of like steroids and a whole bunch of stuff like that. But where Static Shock wore its lessons on its sleeve, like it was very clear they were teaching this specific message, and they're not like sugarcoating it with anything, though sometimes they would. Um, Batman Beyond gives it like some kind of superhero flavor. Like it's not just that steroids are bad, but Batman Beyond is fighting against these people who essentially have like Bane level steroids, but in like a high school, like shit like that. Um, Both really good shows, highly recommended. I've seen every episode of both of those shows, really good. Let's see. Gazelle said, Kratos said, I still have the DC subscription. Yo, then you should have Adventures of Superboy. Kratos said, would you recommend The Death of Superman? The comic or the animated movie? There are like two of those now. There's like one that's called like Superman Doomsday, and one that's called like The Death of Superman. Also, why would I recommend that as like a get you into Superman? That's like a story where he's either he dies or he comes back depending on which part you're watching. Um, I would recommend All Star Superman because everybody says that's like one of the best Superman stories. Um, so that's probably where I would direct you on that. Let's see. Ryan said the DC animated universe is good. He said the DC animated movie universe is also good. Then Kratos said, fair enough. Kratos, you watch Young Justice? Young Justice is the shit. I know it's not super Superman focused, but it's still just a good ass show. Ryan said Doomsday is the DC animated universe version, and the Death of Superman movie is the DC movie animated universe version. Um, man, I don't know. Now I'm thinking about a whole bunch of stuff. Let me situate my legs in this chair. I need to start putting links and stuff in the description while this stream's going on. So I'm gonna start setting that up. Kratos said, I have really meant to get into Young Justice, I just never did for some reason. Yo, like, I don't know why not. So Young Justice is really good. Out of all of the DC animated shows, Young Justice is by far the best one in my opinion. It's pretty brilliant. My dad, when I used to watch Young Justice as a kid, said that Young Justice was for like kids, and that I probably liked it because it had all these sidekick characters in it, and that he couldn't get into it. And then years later, my dad was like, "Oh shit, this is pretty good." And then he started watching it on DC Universe, and he got caught up to like season 3. I'm not sure if he finished it because I think he might have been distracted by other stuff. But I remember him like going from this is just for children to being like, "Oh, this is good as fuck." I mean, that's just how it is. But it is like a genuinely good animated series, and you get to grow. You get to see how the characters grow and progress over time, and you get to see new heroes get introduced and sidekicks become full-on heroes and stuff like that. And they also cover like some really deep, dark topics at times in mature ways. Solid series. Ryan put up a bunch of exclamation points, and then Kratos said, "Okay, I will." Yeah, it's just good. Um, Let me get that Amazon affiliate link in this description box, so that anyone who's interested in buying this Batman book can do so. Kratos said, I used to watch Batman the Brave and the Bold a lot. So that makes sense. So earlier today, Kratos, I was thinking about how much I was talking about Superhero Squad and how much I loved it. And I was like, you know what? The closest thing I think DC has to Superhero Squad, other than the Lego Batman movie and Teen Titans Go, is Batman the Brave and the Bold. As in, it's like a show that you can kind of watch in the background to get your superhero fix, and you never know who's gonna be like in each episode because they have like a variety of different like superhero characters, and it doesn't take itself too seriously, but it's not as silly as like Superhero Squad, or Teen Titans Go, or Lego Batman. Like it's a little bit more grounded than them, and it's just like nice background superhero show where you don't have to care about like the lore. It can just kind of play, but it's not super dated like the Super Friends, where you can play that in the background and not really pay attention, but it doesn't feel the same. Like there's like a time dissonance. Um, but yeah, Batman Brave and the Bold's great. It's a solid series for sure. And then Kratos said, "Yeah, exactly." So I'm a fan. I'm definitely a fan. One DC animated show that I like, but I hear a lot of people shit on, and they're not like big shit ons, but I rarely hear anyone say something positive about it, is The Batman. Excuse me. The Batman came out in like the 2000s. Um, it had like a really different feel for Batman that I don't really think I've seen replicated by anything else. And it put a lot of interesting twist on Batman characters. Um, it was weird to have like an adult Batman and then like really, really young sidekick characters. Because Batman does essentially work with kids, but I don't think any Batman show really shows the kids looking as young as they do than the Batman. They just seem like legitimate children compared to him. Because at least in Batman the Animated Series, Robin seemed kind of tall. I guess Tim Drake looked a lot kiddier in the new Batman Animated Series, but they were pretty fucking young in the Batman. And they even made Poison Ivy younger and gave her like a personal relationship with Batgirl and stuff like that. And the Batman, without having a bunch of other shows to build off of, slowly started to like expand its universe. Like the Batman suddenly started working with like the Flash in some episodes, and Superman appears, and by the end of the series, like the Justice League is like the thing, is like a thing. But it ran for like 3 seasons, and you get to see like a whole season of solo Batman. You get to see a season with Batgirl, I think. Like Batgirl, I think is season 2, and then Robin comes in. Robin comes in near the end, but they did a lot of like interesting twist on Batman's Rogues Gallery. But for the most part, I think people don't like it, and I don't know why. I guess I grew up with it. The composer for the Batman also did the soundtrack for the Lunatics Unleashed, which was like a Looney Tune superhero show. And I'm actually friends with him on Facebook. Pretty cool guy. I really like his music. I like that he can mix like a score with like an electric guitar. And I feel like he did it really well in both Lunatics and in the Batman, but in the Batman especially. He makes guitar feel like it's supposed to be with Batman. And I feel like I'm geeking out a little bit, but the Batman animated series is like heavily scored. Sorry, I just said the Batman, and it makes it confusing. Batman the animated series is like heavily scored. You're not gonna hear like electric guitar riffs or whatever. It's just like orchestral. And then Batman Beyond is like rock, like like kind of like a more like grungier and electric feel. And I felt like the Batman was such a perfect blend of both of those things. You have like the mysterious and swelling score of Batman highlighted by moments of like electric guitar. And then when the action kicks in, it kind of pumps up a little bit. I actually really like the music for the Batman, like a good bit. And I haven't seen something like I haven't seen another Batman thing do that. And I love how they like drew Batman as well. Like the visual style of Batman in the Batman, I think is really different and unique, and I vibe with it. I've heard people didn't like the Joker design. I thought it was fine. Um, they made Mr. Freeze actually have powers. Bane is like a big red dude, almost like he's the Hulk. The younger Poison Ivy thing is like really interesting because for a while she tries to play as if she's like not a kid, and she uses like voice changers and shit, and she has goons that don't know they're working for a child. And her connection with Barbara Gordon's cool. There's just a lot of cool shit. You should check out the Batman. It's not really that bad. I don't know why people hate. Let's see. Where are we at? Ryan said they be young. He said, I remember a clip where Alfred brings Batgirl and Robin cookies. That sounds like something Alfred would do. Kratos said, my dad loved the Batman animated series that had Mark Hamill playing the Joker. And Godzilla said, I liked the Batman. Oh, that theme song? The theme song for the Batman felt like a fucking James Bond thing. Like the way that they did it, it had like a super spy feel to it. Also, the Batman had a special where he fought Dracula, and Joker became a vampire clown or whatever, and that was also pretty alright. Mom got that on DVD. And there's a special features game. I remember playing that. You guys remember special features games on DVDs? It's been a hot minute since I've like fucked with any of those. Um, I'm still geeking out about the Batman. So the Batman animated series that had Mark Hamill as the Joker Kratos is called Batman the Animated Series. He also was the Joker in Batman the New Animated Series, and he's also played the Joker in the Birds of Prey live action show or whatever. And he also plays the Joker in the Batman Arkham games, but not in Origins. In Arkham Origins, they got a different guy. Let's see. Kratos said, "Did you ever watch the Batman versus the Ninja Turtles movie?" Yeah, it's pretty good. I actually watched that with Ryan. For the longest time, I tried to get Ryan to watch it with me, and then we finally did. And then I asked Ryan what he thought about it, and he's like, "I'm glad that you stopped asking me to watch it." He's like, "I'm glad that we just finished watching it." But it was pretty alright. Godzilla said, especially the one where he fought zombies, which I think were just random civilians. Man, you guys are trying to get, well, not trying to, but I do feel like I could go back and watch like a good bit of the Batman. Like it's been a minute since I've really like looked at the Batman, and I feel like this is a good time for it because I've been looking for more superhero stuff to play in the background while I work. Kratos said, "Yeah, he was great in the Arkham games." I agree. The Arkham games are really good. I think Batman VR and Batman Arkham Origins are probably a couple of the weakest entries, though. Ryan said, "How is he in the Birds of Prey movie?" No, not in the Birds of Prey movie. In the Birds of Prey live action TV show, Mark Hamill, I believe, plays the Joker in that. But it's not like the Joker is constantly in it or anything, and it doesn't matter. Uh, the only thing that the Birds of Prey live action TV show actually matters to is like the CW multiverse. Kratos said, "I agree. Batman VR was crazy though." Then Ryan said, "Oh, yeah, Ryan, we would have known if he was in the Birds of Prey movie. We watched that movie together. We went to the movie theater. But then we didn't watch Sonic together. But why not, Ryan? Why not? We could have seen Sonic the week it came out. Because it was like the next week. It was the week right after the Birds of Prey movie. Let's see. So I'm trying to get that full link for you guys. Ah, okay. Copy link address. Gotham. So I'm gonna add the book to the description. Kratos said, "I like Sonic." Ryan said, "I ain't watching Sonic." Godzilla said, "Sonic goes fast. Very fast." I saw Sonic. I thought it was pretty alright. I think it actually worked quite well. Oh goodness, this is crazy. So I made a tiny URL for my affiliate link. I posted it on the community tab. And then I was like, I'm going to go back to the community tab and grab that affiliate link that I made. And then when I copied that link, it was like, oh, did you want the YouTube redirect link to your tiny URL, to your affiliate link, to the Amazon link? And I'm like, why is it such a hard linkception for this fucking book? That's crazy. Um, but I guess that's the link that I'm gonna use. Amazon affiliate link for Batman Gotham Knights issue 1. So prepare to get redirected 4 times seamlessly, and you'll never know that you got redirected 4 times because just Amazon will pop up. But it's a YouTube link that links through all those other things. Kratos said it was better than I expected it to be. Batman VR, I'm glad that you were hype, like that you enjoyed it. Volt said, yo, what's good? Yo, Volt, welcome to the streams, good to have you. Don't forget to smash that like button. How's your day today? Do you have any questions for your boy? Do you have any discussion topics you'd like to talk about on the stream? Kratos said, I bought it with your affiliate link. Nice. I'm going to be doing that for every one of the DC daily digital releases, posting an affiliate link up where you guys can buy it through me. It helps to support the channel and to support DC Comics. It's like the closest thing I have to having a sponsor, which I guess is what I really like about Amazon affiliate links, is that if you want to make money through like an ad that you provide in like your comments or on your community tab, or in like a video description, but you don't want it to be like a random ad like audible.com or like Dollar Shave Club or fucking it's the one that Death Battle uses. I can't remember. Blue Apron. If you want it to be like a product that you actually care about, with Amazon affiliate links, you can straight up just make it a product that you think is cool. Let's see. Kratos said, "No, Sonic was better than I expected it to be." That's fair. I do think Sonic was better than I expected it to be. I thought it was going to be like more silly. Godzilla said, "He is so fast. OMG." Sonic does bring the Sonic speed. Let's see. I need to put tags on this video that I'm currently streaming. That way, it will do better. I noticed that I beat a few bigger YouTubers to doing a review for the Superman book, but I just don't think the Superman book got a lot of attention. Like, not a lot of people watched that video. So I'm like, dang. I felt like I did it early, but it didn't matter. Volt said, "What is the best way to make art on a computer?" I think you're asking the wrong guy, Volt. Are you talking about like visual art? Because that I'm just not good at visual art. Excuse me. I used to edit pictures in Microsoft Paint, and I still would if I had Microsoft Paint. Now I edit pictures with Google Drawings, and that's like the best that I can do. If I want to make superhero characters, I use like Hero Machine or whatever. I do stuff like that. Um, but outside of Google Drawings and Hero Machine, I don't do a lot of visual art on the computer. Volt said yes. Like, what program would be best? Kratos said, Volt, use Autodesk Sketch. He said, best thing you can get is a drawing tablet. Oh, okay. I think Kratos has better recommendations for that because, like I said, it's just out of my wheelhouse. My friend Serena would know. She does a lot of cool art stuff. You should check out her channel, Ichio. Don't ask me how to spell it. If I wish there was a way for me to link her, like easier, like if I knew how to spell it, it'd be fine. I don't know how to spell it. Let's see. Godzilla said, I do garbage art on MS Paint. I feel like you did a good job on MS Paint. Kratos said, Autodesk Sketch is a free software that can do a lot. Ooh, that actually sounds pretty cool. I didn't know it was for free. Oh, actually, the Superman review video did a little bit better than I thought. I thought it had only gotten like 3 views. Um, so I'm glad that people are fucking with it. I wasn't sure. Volt said, because I want to draw art for the species I had written for the book thingy. Ooh, I'd be hyped to see that, Volt. Also, I'm interested in doing multiple editions of these books. And you may be like, what do you mean by do multiple editions of these books? And what I mean is that we could potentially publish a book and then you go, but wait, I had more content that I wanted to add in. Maybe I've like made an illustration for a character, or for something that didn't have an illustration before. I'm down with doing a second edition of a book if you wanted to add an updated illustration or to add additional illustrations so that we can like re-release older books with new art and new artist credits. I think that'd be really cool. I also am down to just do art books in general. Like if you guys are interested in going like I'm going to draw every one of the characters so far in my own style, I'd be willing to publish a book like that. Like just like a showcase of like what you guys can do. I think that'd be cool. Let's see. Kratos said, Nick, I used Autodesk to sketch and to make the cover art. Oh, ballin'. That makes sense, to be honest. I was thinking when you were talking about how much it can do that you probably used it for that. Kratos said, by the way, half of Volume 2 right now is my story. Kratos did write a lot for Volume 2. I haven't written a story yet for Volume 2, but I've created 3 characters for Volume 2. Yo, Kratos, I have an interesting idea for Volume 2. So remember how for volume 1 we created 4 characters and then we did 2 stories where I did one story, you did one story, I made 2 characters, you made 2 characters? What if for volume 2 I make 4 characters and you have a big ass story that's the equivalent of 2 stories and we publish volume 2 like that? It's still like the same amount of content plus more because we have so many like fan submissions like this time around, and then we can move to volume 3. Let's see, Godzilla said we could do that as the cover, a drawing of all the characters. Man, we tried to fit 4 characters on a cover this time around, and one of the characters sadly ends up getting censored by like some of the title stuff, which is a fault of how Amazon does their like cover layouts and everything. Um, Also, Kratos, I think in the future, we know that when we're designing covers in like the portrait space, that if we clear the bottom for the title, that we know that we can fit everybody else. Like if the cover was just the characters on each side and the character at the top, it'd be fine. But it's that character at the bottom that gets covered. Now we know that if we want to do like 4 characters like that, the character that was at the bottom probably could just be shifted to the center of the book. And then we leave a space intentionally open at the bottom where the titles can go, and it's just Gucci. Like, I think we could do stuff like that. What are your thoughts on that? Kratos said, I'm guessing my character had to include. Oh, wait, he said, and I'm guessing my story had to include the 4 characters? Nah. So our stories don't have to include the new characters that we introduce. Those new characters can always be developed upon further in future stories, especially since all of these volumes will contain literally every character we've made up to that point. So we don't have to make sure that we cram them into every story. We just have access to them to then use them in future stories and incorporate them together. I think the next big story I'm gonna do for Heart of Heroes is I'm going to try and build on the lore and connect some of the stuff that Volt made and some of the stuff that Godzilla made to like the greater universe that we've already created. Because I'm interested in seeing how kaiju's relate to like Mistech City and how those monsters relate to Mistech City. Because they seem like 2 things that would probably be a little intertwined. Volt said, now you have species to use in your stories now, too. That's true. Kratos said, this is perfect since you're on a character creation role and I'm on a story creation role. Agreed, because it allows us to fill in both parts of everything. Also, this comic book review has become just a full on like talk vlog, and that's totally fine. I'm having fun. Kratos said, yeah, the cover will be better in the future. No problem, Kratos. I really enjoyed the cover that you made. Volt said, sounds dope. He said, I'm going to try and start drawing AI dungeon stuff too. It would be a good way to spark creativity for the games. Also, I hopefully will be releasing Jerry this month. Ayo, yo, I'm hyped to see your Jerry game, Volt. I've been hyped for that for a while. Godzilla said using AI Dungeon 2 to make the story is probably going to make the story a lot more secret and really cool. What do you mean by secret? I don't know what that means. Yeah, I think it'll make it really interesting. I don't know what you mean by secret. Bacon Sugar Gamer said, hello, yo Bacon Sugar Gamer, welcome to the stream, it's good to have you. How's your day today? Do you have any questions for your boy and any discussion topics you'd like to talk about on the stream? I think if we used AI Dungeon 2 for the book, the AI Dungeon 2 story should take place in an alternate universe. And I only say that because AI Dungeon 2 likes to fuck around and like do really crazy stuff that I'm not sure I want to throw directly into canon. Maybe we should judge it after the fact. Maybe we shouldn't assume it goes into an alternate universe. We could use AI Dungeon 2 and whatever happens happens. And if it's too crazy, alternate universe. But if it fits in with everything else, it goes into continuity. And we could just do it like that. What are you guys' thoughts on that? Big and Sugar Gamer said, what about creation? I'm late. So we've been working on a book, well, a series of books where we create our own superhero characters and push them into the public domain so that anybody can use them. And we're talking about working on future stories for future books using AI Dungeon 2. AI Dungeon 2. Let's see. Volt said, I like talk vlogs, boy. I'm glad that you vibe. I'm curious if anyone's gonna skip over this video though, like in the future, because it's gonna be like an hour-long video and the title's like Batman Gotham Knights Issue 1 Daily Comic Review. But the review like starts and ends within like a fraction of the total story. Also, we only have a couple minutes left before I gotta go to bed. Bacon Sugar Gamer said, "Plus, did you miss me? Hey, I'm glad to have you back, my guy. How you been?" Godzilla said, "I really like talk vlogs. I'm glad that you guys vibe." Kratos said, "So my story is currently 1,121 words. Do you think it needs more?" I'm totally fine with you going hard on it. The main thing, see, our goal for the stories has been 500 or so words minimum. And I went over last time, and I'm pretty sure Kratos went over last time as well. Um, but Kratos had like a big like story brain blast today, and I had a big characters brain blast to get that today. So this volume is like practically finished. Like the current volume that we're working on. Beth ended up submitting a character, so I need to do a character illustration for one of my own characters. I need to do character illustrations for everybody else's characters. I'm not going to do species illustrations. I'm going to specifically focus on drawing characters for right now. I just don't think I'm as good at drawing like monsters, especially since I'm using Hero Machine. I just think I'm limited in that capacity. But I'm totally fine with drawing like superheroes with Hero Machine. I actually feel very confident about that. Um, so I'm gonna draw all the characters um, that haven't been drawn yet, minus Kratos' character. Though Kratos isn't making any new characters this time around, it doesn't seem like. So I'm gonna draw all the characters that you guys submitted, and I'm gonna draw the last character that I made but didn't draw. And then Kratos is gonna finish off his story. I'm gonna go into editor mode, and I'm gonna read all the new material because there's no reason to reread the old material. And then that should be good. After that, we can submit for publishing. So volume two, because I keep forgetting we're already on volume two. Volume two has already been submitted for publishing, so that may be published like by like afternoon tomorrow. So you'll probably be hearing about that tomorrow. And then volume three might get submitted for publishing like tomorrow night, oddly enough. Like we're actually running through it faster than I would have ever expected. I guess I didn't think Volume 2 was going to blow up like this to where we already have so much in like one day. Godzilla said, "We don't know what is happening in the story." Volt said, "Kratos, it always needs more." Bacon Sugar Gamer said, "My story is weird." Oh, what story have you been working on? Godzilla said, "Yeah, good idea." Bacon Sugar Gamer said, "What story again?" So again, we're creating a shared superhero universe made up of characters that anybody can use, that anyone can remix and put into their own merchandise, stories, movies, cartoons, games, etc. All of it's public domain and free to use. We want to try and create more stories for this universe in AI Dungeon 2, and that's what we've been talking about for a good bit. Let's see. Volt said, "Be ready. I'm about to have a new species for every writing vlog." Ooh, that sounds interesting. Godzilla said, "I'm better at making giant monsters." I like Godzilla's giant monster image that he did. I like that his style is very different from everything else in the book. But I like that it still fits within the overall universe, you know? So I'm hype about that. Bacon Sugar Gamer retracted a message. Kratos said, also, I think we should change the wording of the title. Instead of Heart of Heroes Volume X, we should do Heart of Heroes Issue slash Book X because the story within the books are numbered by issues. But they don't have to be. You know what I mean? Like, volume and book and issue are all kind of synonymous with each other. And I think it would be weirder to change it. You know what I mean? Because we already have two books that have the volume thing. You know what I mean? So then we have to violate the volume thing to get it to be like issue or book. You know? Let's see. Kratos said that could get confusing, especially since we'll have some books like this one, which will have my story continue, but not yours. And then he said, does that make sense? Well, I think that's fine because in the About the Book section, I always like to say how many characters and how many stories are in the book. So for this one, I'm going to say how many characters. I have to say how many returning characters there are, how many new characters there are, how many new species there are, and how many stories there are. So I can say like one new original story, four returning characters, a shitload of new characters, and then a shitload of new species. Because species is just a new thing in general. Um, and yeah, I feel like we'll be fine in that regard. Godzilla said, but worse at making humans and humanoids. Well, I got you on the humanoid stuff. Bacon Sugar Gamer said, how do you punish a book? And then he said, publish a book? So the way that we publish is through Kindle Direct Publishing, which is a service that allows you to self-publish books. And all our books are available as paperback and ebooks. Bacon Sugar Gamer said, so if I wanted to, I could put my OC in it. So here are the rules for like submitting like an OC. Your OC has to be fresh from your imagination alone. So we're not accepting like Dragon Ball characters or like Hunter x Hunter characters or like Spider Sonas. Like you have to make sure that whatever you submit is entirely like your own intellectual property that you created. And then you have to feel willing enough to give it away to where anybody can use it. Like essentially you're not getting rid of the rights to be able to use it, but you're essentially giving everyone the right to use it. So those are the main caveats. It has to be original, and you have to be okay with it being public domain, where anyone can use it for any reason. Let's see. Volt said, I'm best at making creepy species. I like this. To be honest, I could see an interesting collab where Volt and Godzilla create like the monsters. Like they create like the villains. And then Kratos and I work on the heroes. And I could see us doing like an AI Dungeon 2 campaign where Godzilla plays as like his kaiju, Volt plays as one of his monsters, and Kratos and I play as heroes who are trying to stop those respective like threats. And it could even be the other way around. Like Kratos and I could play villains. I could play a hero. Kratos could play a villain. The monsters could be good guys, or they could be like anti-heroes. Like we could really play around with that. But since we know everybody's strengths, I think that can lend into like really good stories because we can focus on our strengths and making the things that we know that we're good at making. What are you guys' thoughts on that? Let's see. Bacon Sugar Gamer said, I'm a humanoid person. Kratos said, I just realized how much I did today. He said, I did my Volume 1 story, 516 words. I did the cover art and the Volume 2 story, 1,121 words. I know, right? Like when you get on a like creative kick, you can just start like pumping stuff out. You can just do a whole bunch of stuff. Bacon Sugar Gamer said, oh. Volt said, almost as if we're making a hero version of SCP. I think the species definitely makes it feel almost like an SCP thing. Godzilla said, free for anyone. Bacon Sugar Gamer said, never mind then. Godzilla said, that sounds cool. And then Ryan, not that is Ryan. Ryan said, collab, collab. That reminds me of the regular show. Volt said, I really like that idea. Godzilla said, I would probably make another monster if I was a bad guy. Kratos said, what's my strength, Nick? So Kratos, I feel like is really good at using Hero Machine 3 to create like super detailed characters. His story focus, I haven't read your latest story, but your previous story was definitely heavily focused on like perspective and intrigue. Like you're really working on like hooking in the reader to make them want to read more, while also putting the reader in the driver's seat, making them feel like they're the main character. It's like a it's more of like a style thing. When it comes to your characters that you create, Kratos, I think your best characters are essentially your takes on Spawn. I don't know why, but Kratos in our first collab made an ice character and a character that reminded me a lot of Spawn. And I was like, yo, do you read Spawn? And he was like, I don't read Spawn. I'm like, you should read Spawn. I just think you'd like it. And then for the next book we worked on, he made another ice character and another character that was kind of like Spawn. And I'm like, yo, I think you would really like Spawn. You should hit up Spawn. But I do think Kratos could legitimately write really good Spawn stories. Like if they were hiring to write Spawn stuff, I think Kratos is really good at that like dark, powerful character who like slumps through the shadows and kind of like picks with his victims, who's like somewhat sadistic, but doesn't have to be a good or bad guy necessarily, like who can ride the line of an anti-hero. I think Kratos makes really good like anti-heroes. I say that I focus for the most part on creating heroes specifically. So I could see us creating stories together where Kratos makes like some kind of like dark anti-hero. I could make some kind of hero. Volt could make a monster, and Godzilla could make like a full-on like kaiju. And we have a story where we're all interacting with each other. Kratos said, "Thank you." He said, "I'm really glad I was able to portray all of that well, and that feedback really helps a lot. I'm glad that you vibe, Kratos. I really enjoy working with all of you. And Kratos, this is the first time that I've ever worked so closely with another person on a book that actually is like published. Like I've collabed with people before, but never to the point to where it actually like got published and we were able to work quickly and like do so much. So I really appreciate it. And to be honest, without Kratos, I don't think this would be as big of a thing as it is. Like I think the fact that we are all collabing on it and putting our best foot forward is a part of what like is making this like so special and what's drawing so many people in. So that's something that I'm really hyped about. Let's see. Godzilla said I could also make a monster. That's true. Godzilla and Volt seem to be really into like the creature aspect of everything. And then I feel like Kratos is really into anti-heroes and I'm really into like heroes. And even if, to be honest, we could make whole character guides like on a regular basis if literally every one of us just made a character that fit our style every day. Like if Volt was like, okay, today I made a new monster. Here's my monster. And then Godzilla said, today I made a new kaiju. Here's my kaiju. And then Kratos said, I made another anti hero. Here's my anti hero. And I said, I made another hero. Here's my hero. Like literally each day, we could have like a full like character guide at the very least, like done in like no time. And it would take like very minimal effort from like everyone involved to still create something that like combines all our interests and skills. Let's see. Um, Kratos said, also, I didn't realize I made two ice and spawn like characters. They are really different from each other. I agree that they like all have their differences, but I do see those similarities between the two. I do think your second round of characters like adds on to what you did before. Like it's not like you're in a rut or anything. It's just more like the first characters almost seem like test runs for these characters where I think you kind of went all out and you did flesh them out more. So I think they're similar but different, if that makes sense. Like maybe similar themes when it comes to like their powers and aesthetic, but then I think the level of like detail and effort put into the newer characters with the theme and aesthetic really shows. Like it shows growth from before. I don't mean to say that like you only make stuff like that, but that you have but I am trying to say that you did happen to make two similar things, but I do think the newest version of those things pops off more, if that makes sense. Like you are developing more within that same niche of those two things. Does that make sense? Let's see. Kratos put like a blushy emoji. Volt said he's down. Godzilla said he's down. Kratos said the character guide idea is really good. I'm glad you vibe with it. Kratos said I would just be too excited to make a story for each of my characters, and it's totally fine if we had character. I mean, if we had stories as well, because if there's at least one story in it, it qualifies as being not just a character guide, but like it doesn't even matter if it is just a character guide. They don't all have to have stories in them. Is one thing. Like the Heart of Heroes stuff that we're doing, they don't all have to have short stories. Some of them can just be character guides, and I think that would be fine. Let's see. Godzilla said, and we could use these heroes anywhere. And then Godzilla said, I love the public domain. I also love the public domain. Kratos said, also it's past 12. True. I need to take my happy ass to bed. Kratos said, thank you. Godzilla said, don't tell him. It was hella fun. And then Kratos said, nah, I got work. And then Volt said, yeah, don't tell him, Kratos. Yo, I'd like to thank you all for watching. If you guys like this video, make sure to smash that like button. Favorite, comment, subscribe, and ding, ding, ding. Ring that notification bell to be notified whenever we do these live streams. Before I exit out, if you guys are interested in supporting the channel and also reading some of the latest and greatest comics, I now am doing a daily comic review show, and in the description box below, I have affiliate links to where you're able to buy the comics that I review, and if you use those links, I actually get a cut of the money. So if you guys do that, not only do you guys get to read these awesome comics that we can talk about together on the show, but you also help give back to the channel while getting something yourself. So if you guys want to help support the channel, definitely check out those Amazon links. Also, if you want to support the channel another way, feel free to like purchase some of these books. So we got the Heart of Heroes books. We have the original public domain superheroes books. Those are also just $1. But that would be buying them directly, not through like an affiliate link. But whatever. Just putting that out there in case anyone wants to support the channel and support what we're working on. Anyways, this is your host, your friend, your boy, Jet Black the One Only, logging out. Good night, everyone, and thank you all for tuning in. Peace.